You're listening to the Robert Elm Show, and we shall return to Hampstead Heath a little later. But now we're going to turn our attention to, well, the arts. Or is it science? We've often, I think I grew up in a culture where the two were considered very separate and very different. And at school in particular, you were one or the other. You did sciences or you did arts. I was strictly arts. And so I've always thought of science as an alien world somewhere over there. But maybe we shouldn't make that distinction. That's what we're going to discuss now. And I'm joined to talk about that subject by Dr. Nadia Danhesh on the future of the arts and science together. Hello, Nadia.
Thanks very much for having me.
And thank you very much for coming on. It is true, isn't it, that we've always seen them as very separate entities?
That's the way they've been taught for a long time. But actually at the Royal College of Art, we've taken a different approach, which is to try and get all the disciplines to mix and mingle and work together. And we've found that that's resulted in, big step changes in ideas. People have come up with much more innovative ideas to solve difficult problems by mixing a bit of design with a bit of technology, with a bit of physics. So we think there's real value in doing more of that interdisciplinary working.
So what's your background? I'm assuming you're from a science background.
You're right. I'm a biochemist with a PhD in molecular biology and genetics.
You've lost me already.
But I've spent the last 15 years at the Royal College, which is, primarily known as an arts university, but actually, 70% of what is practiced at the college is design, and much of that is design-led technology, design-led engineering, design-led materials science. We have researchers practicing computing and robotics and design. We have people looking at new materials and combining that with design. We get medics, we get engineers, we get physicists, nurses coming to study art and design and research art and design. So we have been quite interdisciplinary, and we're planning to do more of that, really.
Why is it important? Why should we care about this, do you think?
Well, because the problems that face us today are really big problems, declining bee populations, climate change, pandemics. And you need to take the best from science, whether that's biological sciences, whether it's engineering, physics, and the best of the arts and designs, and combine them together to come up with solutions that really work. I'll give you an example. Cattle contribute around 44% of the sort of greenhouse gases. And one of our graduates who started this project whilst he was doing his master's at the RCA has come up with a solution, which is to put a wearable device on cattle that basically mitigates the methane and converts it into CO2. So when you think that cattle and dairy industry is a really big polluter on the scale of the transport industry around the world, we're now solving that problem by a simple device that took a designer to look at the problem from a new perspective with a new lens and come up with a better solution.
Is this a bovine bum shield of some kind?
well, interestingly, it's the burps. Actually, all the methane comes out of the nose.
It's a bovine burp shield.
It's a burp shield.
Do you get different solutions if you get people from an arts background and people from a science background, or do they kind of meet in the middle, if you like?
I think what they do is they, for example, if you have a medic coming to study jewellery, what they do is they apply the techniques of goldsmithing and silversmithing to designing better needles for syringes, as an example, because they take what they know from one discipline and they mix it with what they know from the other. And another example of one of our spin-out companies is a company called Alombria that's looking at the fact that, the bee populations are declining. And they noticed that actually, flies also pollinate crops. It's just they're not as good at pollinating crops as bees are. So they said, well, how can we make them better pollinators? So we got an architect, a fashion designer, and a graphic designer to work together to come up with a natural solution that basically curates the flight of these flies into the crops. So when the crops are ready to be pollinated, they make sure that the flies fly into those crops and do the pollination. So they've taken what they know from architecture, from fashion, and they've combined it with science to come up with a better solution.
And I bet they're well dressed as well.
Absolutely. The best stripes in town.
Do science graduates or students or whatever it might be, and arts, this is going to sound like a very strange and rather facile question. Do they get on well socially? Because I've always thought, again, that they're sort of seen as different camps, if you like, almost.
I think at the level of students, yes, they do. I think they're fascinated by what they learn. You know, they're curious people, so they're fascinated to understand and learn from each other. Where you, I think it's as you sort of get more established and more entrenched in your discipline as you get older, where you start to see differences. So artists have tended to say, oh, you know, suits and ties and business, that's not for us. But actually, if you use a slightly different language, they're just as determined to come up with solutions and work together. So it's about language, and if you can overcome the difficulties of language, then they work together beautifully.
Is this something that we need to also take back earlier in people's education and development? Because I remember very, very early on, we were sort of split into one of two camps, and I was always words and kind of literature and poetry and all of those things, and therefore I don't think anyone ever even bothered to teach me science or maths because I was seen as one of those ones.
Yeah, and I'm the opposite. I very, very young was put into the science stream and didn't learn any of the other stuff, and I think that is wrong. I think the more forcing pupils to make decisions very early before they really know what they're doing, and to choose one camp or the other is wrong. And a much broader education, keeping lots of subjects in your portfolio is a better route.
Because it's certainly been perceived that there's been a sort of an assault upon arts and culture in education recently, that a real stress on the core subjects and the maths and the science and all of that, because somehow that's going to make us more money collectively.
Yeah, regrettably, it was said that arts are no longer considered to be a strategic priority.
Which seems crazy.
It's crazy. We would argue that science, technology, engineering and maths, so STEM as they're often referred to, the word should be changed to STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, arts and maths, because we think that it's only by removing the borders between these different subjects and working together and using the best of knowledge from each of those disciplines, that's the only way that we're going to tackle some of these challenges that face the world today.
How's your painting skills?
We better not go there.
Where can people find out more about all of this?
They can go to the RCA's website, so rca.ac.uk, or they can even, if they want, look at the degree show that's online at the moment, which is 2021.rca.ac.uk.
And we've been hearing about that from Dr. Nadia Danesh. Nadia, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.